So today for Yen, we're gonna kind of get deep into the hips. And I'm pulling a lesson from Bernie Clark. So I'm gonna offer two variations for the opening pose. If the knees are bothering you, take happy baby. Wide knees, rolling onto your back. If the knees are like, hey, I'm okay, take a child's pose. So figure out where you want to kind of start class and then settle into that. In both variations, knees are going to be wide. If you're coming belly down through child's, feel free to grab an extra prop to support the body. Come on in, come on in. Take the first couple of moments, settle in. Feel how the body is reacting to this moment, to the stillness, to the shape. Notice the ankles, the knees, the hips. Today's flow is going to get deep into the hip sockets, and it may be quite intense. Always know that you have permission to release before I cue it, or to stay and linger for as long as you'd like. And I invite you to watch for any emotions that arise during the flow. And don't be alarmed. You don't have to stop. The practice just invites you to watch the ebb and the flow of your feelings, of your emotions. You might notice here in this child's pose, what's going on, mind and the thoughts. They might be coming at you quickly, one right after the other. Yoga asks us to practice stilling the mind, to bring a bit of peace into the mind. But with its wisdom, it also tells us that we can do that by watching the breath. Watching the way the breath comes in and goes out. Watching the way the breath moves through the body. In essence, redirecting the thoughts to this presence of the breath. Follow another 5 rounds of breath here in this wide kneed shape. Whether you're on your back in happy baby or you are on your belly down in child's pose. And then as the 5th breath escapes from your body, If you're on your back and that happy baby, hug both knees into the chest, wrap the hands or the arms around. If you're in child's pose, press up, maybe slide that prop out. And then gather the knees together. Let the belly roll over the thighs, coming into a narrow child's pose. Let the arms be comfortable. You might take a little sway side to side before you settle into the stillness. And then eventually you release. You let the movement go. You connect again to the flow of your breath. And you watch what happens. In the end practice, we settle into the shape and we choose stillness. Choose to linger in the stillness. And let time simply pass us by. Knowing always, again, you've got the space to slide out of the shape or to linger. We'll start to follow those 5 final rounds of breath. Noticing the inhale, the exhale. As your 5th round of breath escapes, if you're on your back, stretch the body out, resting the limbs to the mat. If you're belly down, slide forward all the way onto your belly. Take a rebound there, noticing the effects of the shape, the hold. Oftentimes, that space in between shapes, the body speaks louder than the shape itself. So let the mind scan the body physically, notice the ankles, the knees, the hips. Notice the back, the head, the arms. And check in with the feelings and the emotions. Recognizing that whatever arises, it's perfect for this moment. Yin creates a space where we can encounter ourselves.
You don't have to run or to hide or to freeze and with yourself. Simply notice and then let it go. And as your sensations subside, we're going to meet one another seated. Mindfully move slowly. We'll meet with the legs extended out in front of us. You're welcome to slide a little prop, a blanket underneath the bum. And then invite a bit of movement here, maybe bend the toes. And then extend and spread through the toes. Repeating that a few times. And then moving into that space of the ankles, take some rotations there, circling. And then take those circles in the opposite direction. And then pause. We'll come into shoelace. And we'll start simply by lifting that right leg and crossing it over the left. You might bend the right knee and bring the knees more together. You might find that side of the foot on the mat. And then pause and just check in. Yen likes to get creative with their names. This is one of my favorites, shoelace. I always have this image of a line of kindergarteners. If you look down at their shoes, one has one little loop in the shoelace, one has double tie, double knotted. One kid has Velcro, one kid totally forgot to unlace their shoes. There's a myriad of variations. And that's how it is in this shape. So you might stay right here. You might lean over to the left and bend that right knee. This is essentially that double knot. And you might get there and be like, oh, heck no. And any other variation is fine. You can keep the knees lifted. You can come into a crisscross Sukhasana. You're just going to settle in where you feel sensation. It's not your fullest range of motion, but you notice maybe a little pull along the outer hips. Maybe you feel it in the legs. And then check in with the spine. Some people like to stay lifted. Some people like to hinge forward a little bit, maybe even resting hands toward the mat, tucking the chin. So that first tenet of the yin practice, settling into a shape just right for you. You don't have to look like me. You don't have to look like your neighbor. You don't have to look like you. You settle in and you invite the muscles to soften. You resolve to find stillness. And you choose to stay. In the stillness and the staying, you watch the ebb and the flow of the breath. You watch the ebb and the flow of the feeling. Naturally, especially when we work in the hips, it's a struggle to stay in the shape. You notice the body tightening instead of releasing. You've gone too far.
gone too deep, feel free to back off a bit. The flip side is true too. You might notice that you've lost that sensation within the body. That the muscles have softened and you no longer feel the shape. If that's you, shift and adjust until you notice that sensation again. Lingering. Sitting in the silence and the stillness with yourself. We'll follow 5 final rounds of breath in the shoelace shape. Now, if you hinge forward a little bit, slowly walk the hands back into the body. If you've bent that bottom leg, the left leg, lean back. Begin to stretch it out in front of you. Coming back into the half shoelace. Take the right hand over to the side, left arm lifts up to the sky. Add a little hinge over to the right. Press into that bottom hand, lift up through the spine again. Find that hinge again, same side. One more time, just like that. This next time that you come up, cartwheel the arms over, left hand finds the floor, the mat, right hand lifts. 3 times. We exhale in a side bend. Inhale, find the extension. Release the hand. Take that right leg and bring it forward, coming into swan. The left leg, we're gonna lean over to the right side, swing that left leg around behind you. Left leg can stay bent if you'd like. You can shift the weight, stretch the left leg behind, and pad up underneath the right hip, especially if it doesn't meet the floor. Slide a blanket or a block or a bolster. You might come down to the forearms. You might reach for that bolster. Using it as support, just bringing the floor up to you. You settle in to the sleeping swan.
This is one of those shapes that people have a strong reaction to. It might be one of instant release. It might be one of utter disdain, dislike. It's also one that emotions pop up. As a yoga teacher, Rod Stryker, he likes to say to his class, if you have never cried or laughed or sighed or moaned during a yoga class, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Experience the emotion and then let it go. There might be 5 more rounds of breath. But again, remembering no pain. Want the practice to nurture us, not to break us. There's a fine line. And as your 5th breath escapes, let the hands, the palms root down, press up through the arms. Shift all the weight over into that right leg, that right bum. Move the products out of the way. Maybe the hand comes back and it helps to lift the left leg. This is where I always groan. Feet are coming forward. Soft bent knees, hands come back behind you. Just let the legs sway side to side. A windshield wiper movement. When we work deep into the joints, there's often a sense of fragility, pulling. So go slower than you think you need to. So be our last little sway. And then once more, the legs extend in front. The body lifts up. Take the arms out in front of you, just circle through the wrists. Coming into shoelace, left leg will cross over the right. You'll pause, you'll notice. Maybe you have a different shoelace variation. Even if you think about that line of kindergarteners, their shoes are not the same. Your legs are not symmetrical. You don't have to take the same shape on both sides. If you want to lean over to the right and bend the knee and bring that foot around, you're welcome to. Again, we want to feel sensation, but we know that it intensifies as time passes. So settle into that just right shape for you. And then notice where the spine wants to be. Maybe it stays upright, maybe it hinges forward. You can even take it on your back, hugging the knees into the chest, if that calls to you. Settle into the stillness. We show up for ourselves. And we take this opportunity simply to be. There's nothing that you have to do or say. Simply be with the self. Maybe you check in and you notice. How does that feel? Sit in stillness with yourself. It might come easily. You might find that every breath is a challenge. But choose again and again. Stay with the stillness. Stay with the quiet. Maybe returning to the flow of your breath. Watching breath come in and go out. Be counting the length of the inhale. Or counting the length of the exhale.
Beginning to trace those 5 idle rounds of your breath here in shoelace. And then as the 5th breath escapes, lifting up through the torso, setting the hands down alongside the body. Over into that right leg and kick it out long and front. Let's add a little rotation here. Right hand across the body, left hand behind. Take some pulses. So the ribs, the chest comes forward slightly and then pulses into a twist, just shifting forward and back. And then the next time you come forward, unravel. Take that little pulsing action to the other side. Rolling the ribs around, shifting the ribs, the chest forward. The next time the chest comes forward, release from the twist. Left hand comes down. You might wiggle that left foot out of the way. Lean over into the left leg. Right leg swings around, showing up for sleeping swan on the other side. Again, any variation, bringing along any prop, any comfort. Padding up underneath the hip or underneath the chest. Eventually settling in. Practicing the stillness, the quiet. Follow
Those 5 final rounds of breath. And as the 5th breath escapes, hands are gonna find the floor, the support. Send to them and lift up. Slide the prop out of the way. Transitioning a little bit differently here. Let's start to tuck the back toes. Lift the back knee, press into the hands. We're gonna step that left foot back. You can rock the hips back for down dog. You can tap the knees down for table. That's where we're gonna meet, hands and knees. You can add a shift, a wiggle. And then we find our knees on the floor. I'm gonna take the bolster and bring it up in between knees and hands. The body is gonna come onto the bolster. Depending on the length of your legs, some people like it at the hips. They feel like they can touch the floor. If you've got shorter legs and you wanna bring it more to the thighs or longer legs and that feels better, we just wanna feel the pressure of the body against the bolster while the rest of the body rests on the mat. Let the body descend. Might almost feel like your bum's kind of popped up in the air. Notice that. Just tap into the pressure at the hips and the thighs. You might find this a whole bunch of a back bend. Several breaths there. Oftentimes, after that 5th or 6th breath, there's a release in the hips, a letting go of the stories that you tell, letting go of emotions that you held on to way past their time. You're resting a cheek down to the floor. Take a moment here to flip to the other cheek. Equal stretch through the neck. Again, several breaths. Maybe inviting the exhalation to be longer than the inhale.
And again, awareness shifts to the hands, root the palms down. Start to activate the muscles of the arms as we lift up. Just press the hands down. Roll the shoulders a few times around and down the back. And then press back into the knees, send the hips back. We'll take a little restorative bridge pose. I'm going to set the bum down on the bolster. Knees to the sky, feet to the floor. Arms have to support you as you lower the body down. Arrange the body so that you feel that bony part of the hip on the bolster. You might even take the hand at the low back and scoot the bum flesh toward the legs. You can keep the knees nice and bent, or you can start to walk the feet away from you. Settling into what we call a waterfall shape. You take the variation that works for you and you breathe, you notice. I know in my body, sometimes I think, oh, today's the day I'm gonna stretch the legs long and linger. And I get there and I'm like, yeah, not today. And I play around with just one leg long, one leg bends. Maybe taking time to switch, or maybe just choosing bent knees. Notice what happens when you settle into that soft breath, the stillness of the shape. If you straighten the legs, start to bend them again, sliding the heels toward the body. Big move here, press into the feet, lift the hips. And just roll or scoot that bolster down toward the knees. Set the bum on the mat. Feel the back of the hips on the mat, broad across the shoulders, back of the head on the mat. Take the arms out nice and wide, a big letter T shape, or even a W shape if that feels better across the shoulders. And then go ahead and roll that bolster down underneath the feet. We'll return to the windshield wiper movements, that side to side sway with the knees. Noticing how the waist, the spine, the outer hip feels. The next time your knees come down to the right, pause and linger there. This might feel different. with the feet on the bolster and the knees just dangling in space. You're going to add a bit of effort to this twist. That left hand, the one behind you, start to make it more of a Y shape. You can take both arms up into that Y shape. And then reach with the left hand, stretch through the fingers. You might start to stack the hips, letting the knees drip down toward the mat. And then soften that effort. Let the hips kind of settle back into the mat. Let's do that one more time. A diagonal stretch from the left hand toward that left knee. And then a release, a letting go. Float the knees back up to the ceiling. Return to that windshield wiper, swaying the knees side to side. Slow like a drizzle rather than a rainstorm speed. The next time your knees make their way over to the left, that's where we pause. We feel the bolster under the feet. We feel the space between the knees and the floor, or the knees and nuts. And then we add a bit of diagonal active movement. Reach through that right hand, start to stack the hips a little bit, knees become heavy. And then back out, soften, rest. Take that stretch again, reaching through the right hand, down the arm, across the body, down to the right knee. And then soften. A few breaths lingering here. And then we make our way into Shavasana. Maybe you float the knees up and you slide that bolster underneath the knees or the thighs. You might release the arms. You might add a blanket across your chest. I'm going to slide my blanket under my head. Always remember that as we come into this final resting shape, if it doesn't bring about rest, take a different variation. Maybe you'd rather sit or be on your side. You settle into a shape that works for you. Notice what arises in that shape. You invite the bum to soften. Muscles of the legs to become heavy. Maybe there's a soft swallow, relaxing the muscles of the throat, softening across the jaw. There's an invitation for the eyes to be heavy in the sockets.
Perhaps the eyes bathed in a bit of darkness by eyelids. The mind has drifted off. Gently guide it back to the flow of your breath. Inviting inhalation to expand. Notice how that manifests. Are you simply aware of inhale? You feel the chest, the rise and the fall of the chest. Maybe it's a longer breath, or a deeper breath. And then invite the head, the back of the head to roll side to side. As you're ready, reach the arms
overhead, lining those biceps up with the ears, stretching through the arms. You might even reach through the legs, full body stretch. And then mindful of the props supporting you, roll to one side or the other. We'll come up into any comfortable seat. Always knowing there's no rush to arrive. Take a moment here in the seat of your choice and let the body and the mind just kind of scan. Check in with those places that might have held tension. You rushed into class. Notice if they've shifted. Check in with the thoughts, the emotions. Notice if they shifted. Notice without judgment. And let those observances go. Let them drift out of the mindscape. We'll circle the arms out and up. Sliding the palms together down the midline. You might pause, thumbs at the heart. You might return hands to the lap. A soft tuck of the chin toward the chest. A gesture of gratitude. Gratitude for the space in our day to find rest. From my heart to yours, namaste.